"Women can't handle combat helicopters," Colonel Davidson declared as Captain Sarah Chen walked toward the Apache. "Too much multitasking under fire. Throttle, collective, weapon systems, target acquisition. They'll freeze up when missiles start flying." 10 minutes later, with enemy rockets screaming overhead and ground troops pinned down, Davidson would learn that the steadiest hands in a crisis belonged to the pilot everyone said couldn't handle the pressure. What Colonel Davidson didn't know was that Sarah had logged 847 combat hours across 3 deployments, more than half his squadron combined. And what the ground troops were about to discover was that sometimes salvation comes from the pilot. Others refused to trust, flying an Apache through hell itself to bring everyone home. The desert sun beat down on forward operating base Hammer as Captain Sarah Chen completed her pre-flight inspection of the AH-64 Apache attack helicopter. At 31, she moved around the aircraft with fluid precision, but the looks from her squadron made it clear that not everyone appreciated her presence. Colonel James Davidson watched from the operations tent, his weathered face creased in disapproval. As base commander, he had reluctantly accepted Sarah's assignment, but 3 months later, he remained unconvinced that women belonged in combat aviation. "She's technically proficient," he told Major Richards, "but combat flying is different. When you're taking fire, managing weapon systems, and flying through hostile territory, the multitasking becomes overwhelming. Women just can't handle that pressure." Sarah's crew chief approached as she finished her inspection. "Aircraft's green, Captain. Standard mixed ordnance, 30 rounds of 30mm, 8 Hellfires, 19 rockets." "Thanks, Martinez," Sarah replied, ignoring the tension radiating from the command tent. Lieutenant Morrison, her co-pilot, arrived with his gear. At 24, he was fresh from flight school and nervous about flying with a female pilot in combat. "Captain, mission brief is updated. 3-vehicle convoy pinned down in Sector 7, 15 miles northeast. Enemy forces have them surrounded with RPGs and small arms." Sarah strapped into the pilot's seat, her hands finding the familiar controls. "What's our support?" "2 other Apaches are 40 minutes out. We're it for now." Colonel Davidson's voice crackled over the radio. "Viper 1 to 6, you're cleared for immediate departure. Enemy forces are well equipped and have already damaged 1 convoy vehicle." "Roger. Hammer base, Viper 1 to 6 departing now." The Apache lifted off with fluid grace, climbing toward the coordinates where American soldiers were fighting for their lives. Sarah monitored altitude, airspeed, engine parameters, and radio communications simultaneously, the kind of multitasking Davidson claimed women couldn't handle. "Captain, I'm seeing multiple heat signatures around the convoy," Morrison reported. "At least 20 enemy fighters with RPGs and heavy weapons." "Viper 1 to 6, this is Convoy Alpha," came a desperate voice. "We're taking heavy fire from multiple directions. 1 vehicle disabled, 3 wounded, ammunition running low. Request immediate air support." "Convoy Alpha, Viper 1 to 6. I'm 2 minutes out. Can you mark enemy positions?" "Negative, we're pinned down. Enemy positions in buildings north and east, approximately 200 meters. At the base, Davidson monitored the mission through tactical displays. "Sir," Major Richards said, "Captain Chen's approach is aggressive. She's coming in fast and low." Davidson watched tensely. High-threat environment, multiple RPGs, possible SAMs, 1 mistake, and we lose an Apache. What Davidson didn't know was Sarah's classified record: 847 combat hours, 53 close air support missions, 14 emergency extractions under fire, 0 aircraft losses, 0 crew casualties. As Sarah approached the convoy, enemy fire erupted from concealed positions. Tracer rounds streaked past while RPGs exploded around the Apache. "Taking fire from multiple positions," Morrison reported, stress evident in his voice. Sarah's response was immediate and precise. Banking hard right, she used the Apache's agility to avoid incoming fire while positioning for attack. Her hands moved across controls with practiced efficiency, collective, cyclic, rudder pedals, all while monitoring weapon systems. Morrison acquired the building northeast of Convoy, 2-story structure with RPG team on the roof. Target acquired, ready to engage. Cleared hot. The Apache's 30mm chain gun erupted with devastating precision, eliminating the RPG threat instantly. But more enemy fighters emerged from concealed positions. What followed was a masterclass in combat aviation. Sarah maneuvered through confined airspace with precision that defied the aircraft's complexity. She engaged multiple targets while avoiding friendly forces, managed weapon systems while flying defensive patterns. "Enemy fighters moving to flank from the west," reported the convoy commander. Sarah adjusted position immediately. I have visual on 6 fighters with RPGs, engaging now. Hellfire missiles streaked toward targets with pinpoint accuracy, eliminating the flanking threat before it could reach effective range. At the base, Davidson watched with growing amazement. How is she managing that many variables? Target engagement, threat avoidance, friendly coordination? That's more multitasking than most pilots can handle. Major Richards finally spoke. Sir, Captain Chen has more combat experience than anyone in the squadron. Her classified sections include missions most pilots wouldn't survive. Davidson stared at him. What do you mean? Sir, she's flown missions that would change your assessment. On tactical display, Sarah's Apache continued its precise dance, systematically eliminating threats while avoiding increasing enemy fire. Morrison, ammunition status, 30mm at 60%, 6 Hellfires remaining. Copy, Convoy Alpha. I'm seeing additional enemy movement from the south. Reinforcements approaching. Negative on movement, Viper. Disabled vehicle can't move. Wounded can't be left behind. Sarah processed this while avoiding another RPG. The convoy was trapped, which meant eliminating every enemy threat, a task challenging even experienced pilots. Morrison, I'm making a close pass to draw fire away from ground troops. When they focus on us, you'll have clear shots. Captain, that's extremely dangerous. We'll be exposed to every weapon. Those soldiers are counting on us. Sometimes you take calculated risks to bring everyone home. Sarah executed a maneuver that would become legendary among Apache pilots. She brought the helicopter to extreme low altitude, flying directly over the convoy while enemy fire erupted from every direction. Taking hits in the tail rotor, Morrison reported as warning lights flashed. Hydraulic pressure dropping. Sarah felt the handling change immediately. Damaged tail rotor meant reduced control. Most pilots would climb to safety and assess damage. Sarah continued the attack run. Morrison, acquiring rooftop targets. Rounds remaining? 100 rounds, 30mm. The final engagement was surgical. Sarah positioned for optimal firing while compensating for damaged controls. Morrison's weapons employment was flawless. When the last enemy fighter was eliminated, silence fell over the battlefield. Convoy Alpha, area clear. You're cleared to move. Outstanding support, Viper. You saved our lives. Sarah guided the damaged Apache back to base with the same precision she'd displayed throughout the mission. Landing with reduced anti-torque required perfect timing and technique. Colonel Davidson was waiting as Sarah climbed out. Multiple bullet holes were visible in the fuselage, testament to the fire she'd flown through. Captain Chen, I need a complete debrief, he said formally. Standard report will be submitted within 4 hours, sir. Davidson studied her. What you accomplished today, I've never seen anything like it. Sir, I did what the mission required. You flew through more enemy fire than any pilot should survive, while managing multiple systems and coordinating with ground forces. That multitasking is beyond what most pilots can handle. Sarah met his gaze. Sir, combat flying isn't about gender. It's about experience, training, and doing whatever it takes to bring everyone home. Major Richards approached with Sarah's complete service record. Davidson reviewed the classified sections with amazement. 847 combat hours across 3 deployments. That's more than half my squadron combined. Yes, sir. 14 emergency extractions, 53 support missions, 0 aircraft losses. Yes, sir. Davidson closed the folder. I'm recommending you for the Distinguished Flying Cross, but more importantly, I'm asking you to consider Senior Instructor Pilot. I'd prefer operational status, sir. Why? Sarah looked toward the flight line. Because there are still convoys needing protection, ground troops needing support, and missions requiring someone willing to fly through hell to bring everyone home. Word of Sarah's mission spread throughout the base. Pilots who'd been skeptical now sought her advice. Ground troops spoke of her with reverence. Morrison approached her in the ready room. Captain, I've never seen flying like that. Where did you learn to handle an aircraft under fire like that? Experience, Morrison. Some lessons can only be learned under fire. Over following weeks, Sarah's reputation spread beyond the base. Other units requested her support for challenging missions. Her success rate remained perfect. Colonel Davidson, who'd initially opposed her assignment, became her strongest advocate. During a visit from senior commanders, he highlighted her contributions. Captain Chen represents the finest traditions of Army aviation. Her combat effectiveness and leadership abilities make her invaluable. A visiting general reviewed her mission records. 0 aircraft losses, 0 friendly casualties, perfect completion rate. How do you explain this performance? Sir, Captain Chen demonstrates that combat effectiveness has nothing to do with gender and everything to do with skill and dedication. 6 months later, Sarah was promoted to major and offered squadron command. During the ceremony, she addressed assembled pilots. Flying an Apache isn't about proving yourself to others. It's about mastering a complex machine in service of protecting people who depend on us. She looked at the faces watching, male and female pilots who would carry forward lessons she'd taught through example. The aircraft doesn't care about gender or background. It only responds to competence, dedication, and courage to fly into harm's way when others need you. After the ceremony, Davidson approached her. Major Chen, you've taught an old soldier that excellence comes in many forms. You've made me a better commander. Sir, we all serve the same mission. Gender doesn't matter when lives are on the line. Walking toward her new assignment, Sarah reflected on the journey from dismissed outsider to respected commander. The doubts had been real, but they'd made her stronger. The Apache represented more than technology. It was proof of what could be accomplished when skill overcame assumption. Sometimes the steadiest hands in crisis belong to the pilot everyone said couldn't handle pressure. Sometimes the most dangerous enemy isn't the one shooting. It's the limitations others place on your capabilities. Major Sarah Chen had proven combat aviation excellence recognizes no gender boundaries. The most important qualification wasn't what others expected. It was what you accomplished when lives depended on your skill. The woman they said couldn't handle combat helicopters had become the pilot everyone wanted overhead when the mission was impossible and failure wasn't an option.